YouTube, how's it going? And welcome back to AJ's Garage. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, I hope you please consider subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. I do also want to say thank you to all the most recent subscribers. If you guys also want to follow the channel, I am on Instagram at Bumpside Builds. I do post stuff on there pretty regularly, stuff that I'm working on that you will see in videos, or maybe some stuff that's just minor and doesn't quite make the cut. But getting into this one, we're going to be working on flatbed part 2. Not quite getting a flatbed on yet, but we need to get some taillights working, fix some of the wiring, and I'm also kind of going to give you guys a glimpse into my master plan here going into the future. Now, that being said, I'm going to turn the dually into kind of a daily driver. The only thing is, in California Central Valley, summer's coming up, it gets quite hot, in the hundreds for days on ends. So it's not going to be the most comfortable thing to drive, even though this did have AC originally. It currently is missing all that. I do kind of want to do a vintage air unit eventually, but for now I just need to get a road worthy. The 70 F350 is going to be coming in, taking its place, and I'm going to be doing, I guess you could say, a frame off restoration, but we're going to take everything off the frame, clean it, paint it, try to do as much body work as we can, hopefully get the truck painted, put a new engine in it. I'm thinking 460, and then get it back on the road, and we'll see what happens from there. I'm also hoping to pick up a trailer, hopefully within the next 6 months to a year, so that I can start picking up other projects and getting them back on the road, whether it be for people or just to kind of try to save as many trucks as I can, I guess. But let's get started. Also, if you want to support the channel, there is a link in the description, but we'll get started with cleaning up the wiring, and then we're going to fabricate some tail light mounting brackets. Alrighty guys, so getting started with this one, before I make any brackets for the taillights, we need to address some of the wiring. So I already went ahead and cut out all the extension wire that they used, which was just this yellow cable here, and then they just used some crimp connectors to gap those in. On this one, I've already started fixing some of these. If you guys haven't seen some of my previous videos, I've used these little heat shrink solder connectors. They're super handy, really simple to use. So I'm going to go over that again, and let's get started. So again, like I mentioned, these are super simple to use. I've probably used them 4 or 5 times now. I think that in 2 or 3 of the videos I've shown them, but soldering is something I've used before or done before as well, which it isn't too difficult, but to be honest with you, I just find these so simple. The fact that they're waterproof and weatherproof make it nice too, so I don't really worry about these connections. So we've stripped the cable, put the little tube on one of the wires. Now we're just kind of spreading these wires out into a cone on both sides. Just kind of make sure they're straight. Spread those out as best as I can. Some of them stick together, so it's not super important, but once you get them spread out, you kind of interlock them together. And I would say almost go end to end to where they're touching the protective coating on the wire, and then just start twisting in opposite directions. Just try to get a nice tight connection here. It helps if you kind of cut back a lot of wires, so this exposed wire is longer. It makes it easier to kind of wrap them around each other, but I guess it just depends on how much you have in the first place. If you're kind of in a tight area, you might not be able to do that. So we're all ready to go. I had a little bit of a technical delay. For some reason my heat gun didn't want to work. But as you heat it up, just distribute the heat evenly. And once it reaches a certain point, the solder will melt and ensure a good, strong connection between both wires. And that's it. So just let it cool down, and then what we'll do is run the wire to the back of the truck. So now that I have the original truck harness all repaired, I got it ran back to the end of the frame and the taillights plugged in. I did also need to do some repair work on the taillights. Some of them had some exposed wiring. One of them was literally hanging on by a strand, so I had to resolder that connection. Those are all good to go now. Wrapped them in electrical tape, so they should be solid. We'll give them a test. They had some of these style connectors on them, which are used to send a signal to another light, for example. The flatbed had 2 taillights on each side, so whatever signal was being sent through this would be jumped through to another cable, which would run a brake light or a turn signal. These little metal tabs, I guess you could say, once you close this down, would make contact with the original power wire, transferring that signal over to the new wire to whatever you're running off of it. So got all those off, cleaned those up. Now let's give these a test. So this is running lights or driving lights. So indicator lights are turned on, the roof lights are on, and we have no running brake lights. Right turn signal, it's not blinking. Left turn signal, not blinking either. But if you guys can see, that clear lines at the bottom would let just enough light to light up a license plate. So I have to figure out now why they're not on at this point here. It might be a ground issue with the casing needing to be ground to the frame or the brackets that we're gonna fabricate. So once I get those fabbed up and mounted, we'll see if they do light up. Now let's check brakes, and those don't come on either. So we'll have to do some troubleshooting, but at least for the most part, they're getting signal. So now that I got the wiring on the taillights cleaned up, it's time to fabricate some mounting brackets. So I went down to my local hardware store and picked up this flat bar of steel. It was originally 3 feet long by 1.5 inches and 1/8 of an inch thick. Probably a little overkill for some taillight brackets, but I wanted them to kind of match the truck and be nice and secure. So I already welded up one of them. This shorter end here, which measures 4 inches, goes to the frame. This long piece here goes out to the taillight, 7 inches. I wanted to have some adjustability as to where I placed it, and I didn't want the taillight kind of hugging the frame. It's already kind of a big, got a big case to it, I guess you could say. So I kind of wanted them a little farther out. I think it'll balance out the rear end a little better that way. So got this one tack welded up. Definitely still need to clean up the welds, and then I also do plan on running a little cross brace diagonally here. It probably doesn't need it, but I'm just gonna do it anyway. So this other one's ready to go. Just use this magnet, keep it in place. Left a little bit of a gap just so we get good penetration on the weld. And then just to make sure that it's nice and square, just ran this square here. It's got a little bit of play down here at the corner, but it doesn't need to be perfect as long as it's close enough, and this one's close enough. So let's get this welded up. Alrighty guys, so it is the next day, and last night I was able to finish up welding the brackets. I did also clean up the welds just so that everything could sit flush against the frame. And I started drilling out the holes. So drilling through metal is not something I normally do. This fabricating is all new to me. So I did look up some of the easiest ways to kind of punch holes, especially something of this diameter. And the way you do it is you start with the small drill bit for metal specifically, drill a small pilot hole, and then you use a step bit to get up to the size that you need. It's also a good practice to use some lubricating oil. You want to run your drill kind of at a lower speed. You don't want to heat it up. So I was able to do that, drilled all these holes in the brackets. The frame had this hole here already, so I just kind of placed my second location there and also drilled the hole through the frame with the same process that I used for the brackets. So this is the passenger side bracket all mounted up. I do need to fix an issue with the housing. These little bolts are pressed in, I believe, but when I removed them, they sheared off, so there's definitely not enough material to secure them on, so I'll have to press those out or find a way to drill those out. I did get some similar type of replacements to those, so we'll use those. And then giving you a first look on the driver's side, we have the taillight all mounted up. Alrighty guys, so both taillight housings are on their brackets and mounted to the truck. I'm really happy with how they came out for my first attempt at fabricating something. I really like the height on them. They're pretty even with the frame, and then the distance away from the frame I'm really happy with as well. I did also put back on the license plate bracket on the driver's side taillight. That was kind of bent up at first, so I wasn't sure if I was going to use it, but I was able to straighten it out, and we'll just use that for now. So let's give these a test. So I do have the key in the accessory on position. We'll just turn on the lights first, and those work, so I can see them on. And we got a turn signal to the left, awesome, and to the right as well, I can see it from here. And lastly, if we have brakes, cool, we have brakes as well. So